August 12, 1977, just 4 days before his death, Elvis Presley mailed a small brown package from Graceland addressed only to Priscilla. No one knew what was inside until after the world went silent. When the box finally reached her doorstep, its contents weren't jewels or gold, but a goodbye that would break hearts forever. August 12, 1977. Memphis, Tennessee. Graceland was quieter than usual that summer morning. The air outside shimmered in the heat, and yet, inside those gates, everything felt heavy. Still, Elvis Presley had stopped rehearsing, stopped making calls. He had even stopped letting most visitors in. For the first time in years, the king wanted silence. Joe Esposito, his longtime friend and road manager, later recalled that Elvis spent that entire week pacing between his piano and the upstairs office, writing short notes in blue ink and humming half-finished gospel songs. He seemed far away, Joe said, like he was packing up something the rest of us couldn't see. That day, Elvis sat at his desk surrounded by unopened fan letters, Polaroids, and one small wooden box. On it, he wrote a single name in that looping, unmistakable handwriting, Priscilla Presley. By then, the two hadn't been together for years. The marriage had ended, but the bond hadn't. She was the one person he never managed to shut out completely. Elvis tapped his pen against the desk. Then, slowly, he began to write. Scylla, there's something I've been meaning to send you for a while now. Not because of what we were, but because of what we still are. He paused, looked toward the window. Outside, the evening light caught the gold gates in a way that made them shimmer like they were moving. He sighed. Lord, he murmured. I hope she understands. Joe entered quietly, carrying a tray of coffee. Boss, you need anything? Elvis shook his head. Just a box and some ribbon. Joe frowned but didn't ask questions. He brought what Elvis requested, a small brown parcel and plain white wrapping paper. For the next hour, Elvis moved slowly, carefully. He placed the item inside, something only he and God knew the meaning of, sealed it, and wrote the return address. Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. When Joe came back, the box was ready. Mail this out today, Elvis said softly. Make sure it gets there before Monday. Joe nodded, taking it without asking where there was. Later that night, Jerry Schilling joined him by the pool. The two men talked about upcoming plans, about Lisa Marie's next visit, about concerts that might never happen. But Elvis seemed distant, a man half in the present, half somewhere else entirely. Jerry asked, You all right, E? Elvis smiled faintly. Just thinking about home. He didn't mean Graceland. By the next morning, the box was gone, sent west on its way to Beverly Hills. No one at Graceland mentioned it again. Not Joe, not Jerry, not even Elvis himself. But something had changed. He seemed lighter that day, calmer. He played Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain on the piano, one of the last songs anyone would ever hear him sing. It wasn't for the fans. It wasn't for the crowd. It was for her. The house staff noticed him pause midway through, staring at a framed photo of Priscilla and Lisa Marie on the mantel. He smiled once, soft, almost relieved, and whispered something under his breath. No one heard it clearly, but some swore later he said, It's on its way. For days later, the news would break. But that night, as the Memphis moon rose over Graceland, a single package sat on a mail truck heading west, carrying his last words of love, wrapped in silence and paper. Sometimes the loudest goodbyes are the ones no one hears. August 13, 1977. A mail truck rumbled down Highway 78, leaving Memphis in the morning heat. Inside its cargo compartment sat hundreds of letters and parcels, and one small brown box with "From E. Presley" written across the corner in neat blue ink. The driver had no idea what he was carrying. At that same hour, inside Graceland, Elvis sat by the piano wearing a loose white robe. The curtains were drawn, and the house was dim. His cousin Billy Smith later said, It was like he knew something was coming. He just kept saying, I feel tired, but peaceful. Outside the mansion gates, fans waited, pressing their faces to the iron bars, hoping for a glimpse. But the king didn't come out. He hadn't stepped past those doors in 3 days. He played one song again and again, a gospel tune his mother used to hum, farther along. His voice was low, raw, but calm. Between verses, he'd stare at the piano keys and whisper, "She'll understand one day." Joe Esposito stood in the doorway. "Elvis, you need anything?" Elvis smiled faintly. "Just time, Joe. A little more time." Joe didn't realize those words would haunt him forever. Meanwhile, somewhere across Arkansas, that small package sat steady on a steel shelf in the back of the postal truck. The sun beat down, shaking the road. Every bump made the box shift slightly, as if restless to reach its destination. Inside was a velvet pouch sealed with tape, and folded beneath it, a letter written in Elvis's own hand. "To my first home. For all the light you gave me, even when I forgot how to see it." The postmark was dated August 12, 1977, 9:47 p.m. Back in Memphis, Elvis's doctor, George Nicopolos, stopped by that evening for a routine visit. He found Elvis sitting quietly in his reading chair, flipping through an old photo album. "Doc," he said, "you ever think about how people remember you?" "Sometimes," Nicopolos replied, "but not too much." "Why?" Elvis looked up. "I just hope they remember I tried." The doctor smiled gently. "They already do." Elvis chuckled, but it wasn't amusement, it was disbelief. "Nah, they remember the stage, not the man." He closed the album softly, set it on the table, and said something so quiet the doctor barely caught it. "The man's in that box now." That same night, Jerry Schilling called to check in. Elvis didn't pick up. He was in his room writing again. Short sentences, half-finished verses, each one folded into the Bible on his nightstand. By midnight, he stood at his bedroom window, looking out toward the Graceland gates. The crowd's candles flickered like 1,000 stars. He watched them for a long time, then whispered, "Thank you." That was August 15th. On the morning of August 16th, at 9:30 a.m., Graceland's phone lines lit up. The king had been found unresponsive upstairs. By noon, the news had crossed the country. Radios stopped playing. Stores closed early. People pulled over on highways just to cry. And that afternoon, as fans gathered outside her Beverly Hills home, a small postal van stopped at Priscilla's gate. The driver rang once, twice, no answer. He left the package on the front step. The label read simply, "From E. Presley, Memphis, Tennessee." Hours later, the phone inside would ring. Priscilla would pick up. A friend's voice would shake through tears. "Scylla, he's gone." Outside, the mail truck disappeared down the street, leaving behind the final message of a man who had run out of tomorrows. Because sometimes, love travels faster than the heart, but slower than time. Beverly Hills, August 16th, 1977. The morning light hit differently that day, too bright, too quiet. Priscilla Presley was in the kitchen making coffee when the phone rang the first time. She didn't answer. The second ring was louder, more urgent. On the third, she picked up. "Scylla, turn on the TV." It was Jerry Schilling. His voice cracked mid-sentence. She didn't need to ask why. Her world blurred before the words even came. "Elvis is gone." The cup slipped from her hand, shattering across the tile. She pressed the phone to her chest and slid down the wall. Outside, paparazzi lenses flashed like lightning over her gate. The whole world already knew. For the next few hours, she moved like someone underwater. Calling family, checking on Lisa Marie, refusing interviews. Every voice that called said the same thing. "I can't believe it." Then, near sunset, came a softer sound. A knock. When she opened the door, a postal carrier stood there holding a small brown box. His uniform was soaked with sweat. He'd been delivering in the California heat all day. "Delivery for Mrs. Presley." She hesitated. "From who?" He pointed at the corner label. "E. Presley, Memphis, TN." Her breath caught. "That can't be right." He shrugged gently. "Ma'am, it was mailed Friday. Needed a signature." Her hand shook as she signed. The man tipped his cap, turned, and walked back toward the truck. Priscilla stood in the doorway staring at the box. The tape edges were still crisp. The postmark read August 12, 1977, 9:47 p.m., 4 days before he died. She carried it inside, setting it on the kitchen counter beside the broken mug. For nearly an hour, she just stared. Should she open it now? Or would opening it make everything too real? The TV murmured in the background. Newscasters replaying his songs, fans crying outside Graceland. One reporter said, "It's believed Presley spent his final days preparing a new tour." They had no idea what he'd really been preparing. Finally, she peeled the tape back. The paper crackled softly, the sound cutting through the static hum of the television. Inside was a small velvet pouch and a folded letter sealed in blue wax. The handwriting on the envelope stopped her cold. That looping, familiar scrawl she'd once watched form love notes on napkins and hotel stationery. She ran her fingers over her name, Scylla. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Then she slid her thumb under the seal. The paper unfolded like it had been waiting for air. "Scylla, if I never get another chance, thank you for giving me a home before I ever owned one. Tell Lisa her daddy loves her loud. And if this world ever gets too noisy, open this. You'll know what to do." The ink trailed off near the bottom, smudged slightly, as if written through tears or trembling. She covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh God, Elvis." Her hands trembled as she reached for the pouch. Inside was something delicate and cold, a heart-shaped gold locket. She clicked it open. On one side, a photo of him holding Lisa Marie. On the other, an empty frame, blank. Beneath it, etched so small she almost missed it, were 5 words, "Peace at Home, 1977. Her breath hitched. The locket gleamed under the kitchen light, catching her reflection. Tired eyes, wet cheeks, and behind them the ghost of a smile she hadn't worn in years. She pressed the locket to her chest and sobbed. Not for the fame, not even for the loss, but for the timing. He had mailed love faster than life could deliver it. When Lisa Marie came into the room, Priscilla wiped her eyes and smiled faintly. "Honey, your daddy sent us something." Lisa looked up. "What is it?" "A promise," Priscilla whispered. They sat together on the floor, holding the small gold locket between them. Outside, the city hummed with headlines and sirens. Inside, a mother and daughter sat in silence, the weight of a lifetime resting in a box no bigger than their hands. And on that day, when the world mourned the king, one woman realized he hadn't left her empty-handed. He'd sent her proof that even goodbye can sound like thank you. Night settled over Beverly Hills. The reporters outside finally left. The house fell quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of Lisa's toys clinking upstairs. Priscilla sat at the kitchen table, the locket still warm in her hand. The letter lay open beside her. The paper smelled faintly of Graceland, cedar, aftershave, and thyme. She read it again, slowly. Each word sank deeper. "Scylla, if I never get another chance, thank you for giving me a home before I ever owned one. Tell Lisa her daddy loves her loud. And if this world ever gets too noisy, open this. You'll know what to do." Her eyes fell to the last line, written smaller, tucked beneath his signature. "When I say home, I mean you." The ink had faded slightly at the edge, but the message hit like thunder. She whispered, "You always did right like you were singing, didn't you?" Outside, Los Angeles carried on, neon lights, sirens, the rhythm of a world too busy to pause. But in that small kitchen, time stopped. Priscilla turned the envelope over and noticed something she hadn't seen before. Faint pencil marks on the back flap. For simple words, barely visible, "Peace at Home, Track 1. Her heart skipped. A song title. Could it be? She opened the locket again, running her thumb over the tiny inscription that matched those same words. Peace at Home. The coincidence was too exact to ignore. She went to the living room, pulled out an old cassette player from under the shelf, and slid in one of Elvis's personal rehearsal tapes, one he'd given her years earlier. The label read August 1977, private. She pressed play. First only static, then a faint hum, and then his voice. "Lo, there. almost whispering. "Testin', 1, 2. He cleared his throat. Then soft piano keys filled the background. "This one ain't for the stage. Just for me." The melody began, simple, unfinished, fragile. His voice trembled but carried warmth. "The stage lights fade. The crowd moves on. I'm still here when they're all gone. If peace means love that don't roam, then I found it. I'm home." Priscilla covered her mouth. Her body froze. It wasn't a polished track. It was a prayer disguised as a song. He paused halfway through, speaking instead of singing. "If you're listening, you were my quiet. Always." Her breath broke. The tape hissed, then clicked. And, for a long moment, she didn't move. What would you do if the voice you'd loved most returned through the static? Would you play it once, or forever? She pressed rewind, then play again. Same words, same crackle, same goodbye disguised as grace. Tears fell freely now. Not the loud sobs of fresh loss, but the kind that come when understanding finally lands. This wasn't a random gift. It was deliberate. He'd sent her the song title and the locket to lead her here, to this one recording he knew she'd find. It was his way of finishing the conversation they'd left open for years. She whispered, "You always said music was your truth. Guess this was the last one." Upstairs, Lisa's small footsteps padded toward the stairwell. "Mommy? Are you okay?" Priscilla wiped her eyes quickly. "Yeah, baby. Daddy wrote us another song." Lisa blinked sleepily. "Can I hear it?" Priscilla nodded, pressing play once more. They listened together. Elvis's voice filled the room again. Softer now, but still steady. Lisa laid her head on her mother's shoulder. "If peace means love that don't roam," the child whispered. "He sounds happy." Priscilla smiled through tears. "He finally is." When the tape ended for the second time, she ejected it, placed it carefully back in its case, and slipped it inside the velvet pouch. Then she folded the letter and tucked it behind the photograph in the locket. She held it against her heart and whispered, "Message received." Outside, the wind picked up. Curtains swayed slightly. And though she would never say it publicly, Priscilla later told a friend that, in that moment, the whole house seemed to hum with quiet harmony, like the echo of a man finally at rest. Sometimes the people we lose don't leave words, they leave directions. And sometimes those directions lead us right back to the sound of love itself. 2 days later, Priscilla sat in her bedroom, sunlight spilling through the curtains. The locket lay on her nightstand, gleaming softly in the morning light. She hadn't taken it off since the night she opened the box. But something about it kept tugging at her. She'd noticed, when she held it a certain way, a faint clicking sound, like metal brushing against something hidden inside. She picked it up again, turned it over, and gently tapped the back. There, another click. Her curiosity grew stronger than her hesitation. She fetched a small screwdriver from the kitchen drawer, the same one she used for fixing Lisa's toys, and sat down at the table. Slowly, carefully, she loosened the hinge. The back plate popped open. Inside was something she hadn't expected. A paper-thin sliver of tape. Magnetic audio film, tightly wound like a secret scroll. Her pulse raced. At first, she thought it was just part of the design. But then she noticed faint handwritten initials in blue ink. EP 877. Her breath caught. It wasn't just a keepsake. It was another message. She rushed to her study and grabbed a small reel adapter, one Elvis had given her years earlier for playing microtape recordings. Her hands trembled as she inserted the strip, turned the dial, and pressed play. Static filled the room. Then his voice. "If you found this, you're exactly where I hoped you'd be." She froze. The sound was clearer than any memory. "I didn't know how to say it in person. Guess I ran out of chances to get it right. But I wanted you to know. I was still listening." He paused, breathing audibly. Slow, careful, tired. "I know I messed up plenty. You gave me a chance at peace long before the crowds ever did. That's what this locket's for. You carry it when the noise gets too loud." His tone softened, a whisper wrapped in warmth. "Tell Lisa I love her beyond the songs. Tell her to keep singing, even when I can't." Priscilla covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. Then his voice steadied. "And Scylla, I want you to know something. You never were just the chapter before fame. You were the part that made the story worth telling." There was a faint rustle, the sound of him shifting the microphone. "When they talk about me later, they'll talk about the music, the jumpsuits, the lights. But I hope somewhere they talk about this too. The quiet. The love that didn't make the papers." Then came a long silence. A few piano notes, tentative and trembling. "Guess that's all I got left to say. Take care of our little girl. And remember, I sent this so you'd never forget. Even kings need a home." The tape clicked off. Priscilla sat frozen, staring at the recorder. Every part of her body tingled. For a long while she didn't move. She just listened to the silence that followed, as if he were still in the room. A ghost, gentle and familiar. Lisa walked in quietly, holding her stuffed bear. "Mommy? Why are you crying again?" Priscilla smiled weakly through tears. "Because your daddy's still talking to us." Lisa tilted her head. "What did he say?" "That he found peace," she whispered. "And he wants us to find ours." Lisa reached up and touched the gold locket. "It's warm." Priscilla nodded. "It always will be." That night, she placed the locket back around her neck, where it stayed for decades. She never mentioned the secret recording publicly, not once. Only a handful of people knew it existed, and in a way that was exactly what Elvis had wanted. The King's final song wasn't written for the world. It was written for one woman, and one little girl, who had given him the quiet he couldn't find anywhere else. Sometimes the most powerful love story doesn't end on stage. It ends in a whisper, and maybe that's how legends say goodbye. It didn't stay secret forever. By 1982, 5 years after Elvis's death, whispers began circulating through fan circles about a private recording. Something personal, something never meant for release. The rumor started with a retired postal clerk who told a Memphis reporter, "I once delivered a package to Beverly Hills the week he died. No one believed him, until someone else did." That fall, a small Los Angeles magazine published a 2-line note in its gossip column. A mystery tape labeled "Peace at Home," allegedly recorded by Elvis Presley, exists, currently in private hands. Fans went wild. Theories flooded radio shows, fan clubs, even talk shows. Some claimed it was fake. Others swore it was the King's true farewell. Priscilla watched it unfold quietly from her living room. She never confirmed or denied the rumor. She didn't need to. Some truths lose their power once spoken aloud. But one night in 1983, while organizing boxes for an exhibit at Graceland, she received a call from Joe Esposito. "Scylla," he said, "they're asking about the tape, the one from that week." She hesitated. "What about it?" "They want to know if it's real, if you've got it." Her heart pounded. "And what did you tell them?" "I told them some songs aren't for the radio." She smiled faintly. "Good answer." But the calls didn't stop. Graceland's staff received letters, interview requests, even blank checks from collectors offering millions. One fan mailed a note that read, "The world deserves to hear his last words." But did it? Priscilla sat awake that night, staring at the locket on her dresser. The soft gold reflected the light from the hallway. She thought about his words on the tape. "You were my quiet." He hadn't sent it to the world. He'd sent it home. By 1985, the myth of the Peace at Home tape had become Elvis folklore. Bootleggers faked recordings. Radio hosts played imitations, claiming authenticity. But those who had truly known him, Joe, Jerry, the inner circle, stayed silent. They knew the real one existed, but they also knew it wasn't theirs to share. Still, fate has a way of uncovering what's meant to be remembered. In 1987, an archivist cataloging Graceland's private inventory stumbled across a small, misfiled envelope. Inside was a second copy of a micro-reel labeled EP 877 Alt Mix. When she played it, static filled the room. Then that unmistakable voice. But instead of the soft confession Priscilla heard, this version began differently. If peace means love that don't roam. It was the same song but rougher, rawer. Cut off midline, followed by his laughter. "Guess I'll never finish this one, Joe." Then silence. The archivist froze. She knew instantly what she'd found. She contacted Priscilla that same day. When Priscilla arrived at Graceland, she listened once, eyes closed. When it ended, she said only, "He was trying to say goodbye, but he didn't want to sound sad." The archivist asked softly, "Should we release it?" Priscilla shook her head. "Not yet. Some goodbyes aren't ready to be public." Word eventually leaked that she'd heard it, confirming the legend without ever revealing the truth. And that's how the world finally believed. But here's the part they never knew. The original tape inside the locket never left her possession. She kept it locked in a small cedar box, the same kind Elvis once used to store his gospel jewelry. Every year on August 16th, she'd take it out, play it once, and whisper the same words before pressing stop. "You found your piece. I'm still finding mine." The world loved Elvis for the noise. She loved him for the silence. And maybe that's why, decades later, the myth of the piece at home recording still endures, because the fans never needed to hear it to believe it. They could feel it. What if some legends aren't meant to be solved? What if their mystery is the message itself? Decades have passed since that small brown package left Graceland, but the legend inside it still moves quietly through the world. Whispered from fan to fan like a prayer they're afraid to speak too loudly. They call it Elvis's final song. But for those who truly knew him, it was something else entirely, his final truth. Every August, Graceland fills again. Thousands of fans from all over the world walk the same path up the candlelit driveway, holding flowers, photos, and prayers. Yet, among all the memorabilia, one item always stands out. A small heart-shaped gold pendant displayed near the grand staircase. It's labeled simply, "Replica of the Peace at Home Locket. Gift to the Presley family, 1997. The original never left Priscilla's possession. But this replica carries the same engraving, the same inscription, the same story that no museum glass could contain. During one anniversary memorial, a reporter asked her, "Why never release the full recording?" She smiled softly, "Because it wasn't written for a crowd. It was written for closure." Her answer echoed across fan forums, documentaries, and interviews. It didn't end the curiosity, it deepened it. People began bringing their own versions of Peace at Home. Poems, homemade songs, diary pages left at the gate. They weren't just honoring Elvis. They were responding to him, because deep down, everyone understood what he meant. It wasn't about fame, or music, or even legacy. It was about peace. In 2002, the Elvis Presley Fan Club of Memphis placed a bronze plaque beneath the magnolia tree near Graceland's meditation garden. The inscription read, "Peace at Home, a song we never heard, but always felt." Priscilla attended quietly, wearing the original locket beneath her dress. She didn't speak publicly that day, but a fan near the front said she saw her whisper something under her breath before leaving. He finally got his rest. Years later, Lisa Marie would share her own memory in an interview. "Mom used to tell me that Dad's last song wasn't about death. It was about coming home to yourself. I didn't understand it as a kid. Now I do." The interviewer asked what she did with the locket after her mother passed it to her. Lisa smiled faintly. "I keep it close. It reminds me that some goodbyes are really homecomings." For many fans, that single statement became the emotional centerpiece of Elvis's story. Not the glitter, not the records, not the shows, but the man who, at the end of everything, mailed his piece to the only person who could understand it. And though no one has ever heard the complete recording, one thing remains certain. It exists. Somewhere in that gold locket, sealed in love and memory, lies the voice of a man no longer trying to be a legend, just trying to be human again. A former Graceland archivist once said, "I've seen the footage, the clothes, the contracts, but nothing hit me harder than the story of that box. It's proof that even kings whisper when they pray." That's what keeps the legend alive. Not mystery for mystery's sake, but the sense that somewhere inside all the noise, Elvis found the one thing he'd been searching for all along. Peace. Maybe that's why visitors still pause at the replica locket, standing in silence for a few seconds longer than they planned. Maybe that's why fans write letters beginning with, "Dear Elvis, I hope you found peace at home," because in their own way, they're all chasing the same stillness he finally reached. The King's music shook the world. His movies filled theaters. His name defined an era. But his last act wasn't a concert or a recording session. It was a gift, quietly sent, lovingly received, eternally remembered. A reminder that fame fades, but peace endures. And maybe that's what Peace at Home was all along. Not a song, but a benediction. A final note that says, without words, you can stop searching now. You're already home. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone still searching for peace in a noisy world. Elvis left behind more than music. He left a message that still hums beneath every candle at Graceland. Peace isn't found in applause. It's found in love that never leaves. Maybe that's our song too.